Hi, this is Sarah, and I will be giving peer feedback on the social network mini curriculum unit titled Elementary Math Buddies, created for Boise State class EdTech 543. After reading through this entire unit and the site, I found that the audience was for instructors wanting to include this unit in their own classroom, in their own elementary classroom for teaching math. It's not really a site meant for students to click through and follow instructions instead of that unit and lesson framework built for the teacher to use. It's created by two elementary teachers in the Pacific Northwest, and after reading through the overall site, I went ahead and created a rubric to grade them on. The rubric has 7 different categories. Those categories are the criteria that can be found in Module 7 of our class Moodle. After creating those categories, giving feedback, I also gave a weighted point grade based on what I thought were the most important components of the project. So for this feedback screencast, I will be going through each of the categories and explaining my rationale and grade for each of those categories. So we'll go ahead and start off with the learning platform. This group, they use Google Sites for the information about the activities. They also included a Google Classroom in which the students can find information on each lesson and will also be collaborating together. So back to their Google Sites, I overall gave a 12 out of 15 on the learning platform. I thought the Google Sites was a well-designed unit explanation. I especially appreciated this image on the homepage. You can immediately see what the 6 different social networking platforms will be in this unit. It was easy to navigate from page to page, clear what each page included, a simple design, which I think is very effective. There were 2 areas in which I think this group or the 2 contributors could make some improvements, being the pictures and then also the grammar. For example, a couple of the pictures were difficult for me to read. The first one being the landscape of learning rubric that they used. I struggled to read the information in each of the bubbles. It looks like maybe even there's some information missing below. I think it would be beneficial if this was a downloadable document that I could use in my own classroom. A couple other images occur in the learning activities. This first poster, although it is clear that it's about a race in a big city, it's still kind of hard to read. Again, I'd love it for it to be a downloadable poster for my classroom. And then the example student poster, it's both sideways and I can't read what's on it, so it's not very helpful for me as an example. The other area that I docked a couple points was grammar. Throughout the unit, there were grammar errors. It seems like in just about every text box, there's some sort of grammar error. For example, on peers work, so double on, missing an apostrophe. For the most part, the grammar errors were minor. There were a couple, though, that actually made it difficult for me to understand what the sentence was saying. The next category was course description, objectives, and expectations. I gave a 17 out of 20 in this category. Let's go ahead and find that page. It can be found on unit description. And the course description I thought was very effective. It's concise and tells me exactly what will be learned in this unit, what's the theme of the unit, a running club and a race, and then also how will social media be integrated for collaborative activities between students as well as with the teacher. Nice work there. The objectives and learning outcomes, clearly listed, understandable by both an educator as well as a non-educator, so if parents wanted to see. And then performance participation requirements, as well as just the expectations of students, were for the most part good. I thought participation requirements was well done. It explained exactly how students would be participating and on what platforms. One area that I think could use improvement is the assessment. The 2 contributors explain that teachers and students teachers will be assessing the students based on this landscape of learning rubric, I didn't quite understand how that grade would be given or what the teacher would exactly assess. Later on in the unit, it does say that the teacher would be conferencing with the individual students throughout the unit, but I didn't quite understand, are the students self-assessing themselves on these bubbles? Will the teacher highlight it in? And how exactly will the teacher show that that student has met that objective? So a bit more information on the actual assessment would be helpful to me. The course monitoring, though, does make sense that most of the platforms or all of the platforms will be within classroom accounts, so the teacher can easily monitor the student interaction. In the next category, we have student and course content creation and sharing of platforms. I thought this is a very well done page. It's under course technology. And the two contributors, they clearly list the 6 different technology uses, what the technology will be for that use, and then in detail explain exactly how they will be using that technology in the classroom. Also, the contributors included class codes, an example, a Google Docs when applicable, so that an instructor who wanted to use this unit gets an idea. Here's an example of the Seesaw instructions that the students would see so that they can sign up for their classroom Seesaw account. Really nice work there. Clearly understandable and a great explanation of how these technologies will be integrated. Next up, we have the student interaction category, also full points, 20 out of 20. I did have one question. I wondered how students would find their math buddy. Would they be pre-assigned at the beginning of the unit? It just says that students will connect with their online buddy. I didn't dock any points for this. It's just a question I had, something that maybe you'd want to specify in the unit, although not necessary. Some really great things that the two contributors did were including a class hashtag and codes for students to find their platforms. I was actually able to do that as well. I found the class Google Classroom site, and the Seesaw account has expired, but I assume I could have found that just as easily. And then one thing that I thought was well thought out by the two contributors were the levels on which the students would be interacting using social media. They would be working together in pairs on Google Hangouts with their math buddies. They would work together in whole class discussions using Google Classroom as well as Twitter. And then also they would be individually exploring and commenting on shared work. They would comment on their Seesaw journals, and then at the end of it, they would also be commenting on the book that they're creating using the book creator for Google Chrome, which is that overall final project to show what they're learning, which I'm assuming would be what the teacher is assessing with that rubric from earlier in this screencast. So 20 out of 20 there. Nice work. I really like the different ways in which the students are interacting. Next, we've got sharing and management of course information, and then also the interaction. So the social media accounts are all on class accounts. This is highly appropriate for elementary students, makes it possible for the teacher to monitor all of their interactions. The students can get their assignments and classroom information from this Google Classroom. They can ask questions of the teacher in class. All of the components for this unit would be completed in school. There's no homework component, so making it even easier for the teacher to answer questions in class and also monitor social media behavior in class. Aside from that, they also have a social media policy that they have to take home and have their parents sign, so parents are aware of what's going on in the classroom as well. One thing I think could be a great addition, not necessary but kind of something fun, would be maybe have the information for parents to join the classroom site so they can see what their students are doing in class, including the Seesaw projects. But overall, 15 out of 15 on the sharing, management, and of course information and interaction. And then the last category we have here is the 3 sample learning activities. This is the meat of the unit, the meat of the project. And the two contributors, they didn't really create 3 distinct activities. Instead, they have 5 lessons as well as a final lesson. So this would be a great unit for 1 week of classes, doing 1 lesson per day. And it from what I could tell from the overall lesson plans, the lessons alternate from learning activities and then a reflective activity afterwards the next day. And the lessons are repetitive in that nature, which I think is really beneficial for those elementary students. So in the first lesson, students always use Google Classroom and Google Hangouts to talk with their math buddy about whatever the assigned math problem is for the day and the assigned questions. And then on the second day, they would reflect on what they learned with their math buddy and include that information in their book that they're creating. And then between each of those lessons, there was always some kind of whole class discussion to really talk about what's been learned and what kind of discussions are going on with the buddy. So, really well thought out lesson ideas, and it's consistent that they would keep doing the same thing over and over again when it comes to procedures, so that by the end of the lessons in lesson 4, students immediately know what they're doing. They can grab their laptops and start working with little teacher instruction, and the teacher can concentrate on monitoring social media interaction instead. One thing I also did like is as they said, I really liked their words, that for a change of pace, the students would use Twitter with the teacher to chat and collaborate about some of the reflective questions, and they'd use the hashtag PNW MathBuds as well. So I really enjoyed reading through those 3 sample learning activities. I thought the framework would be usable for all sorts of levels: high school, junior high, elementary school, and all sorts of different subjects. Just change the information the students are learning, but use that same collaborative framework. So 60 out of 60 in that area. I didn't see any extra credit completed by the 2 contributors unless that was given to the instructor individually. So overall, the final grade is 144 points out of 150. I think that comes out to a 96%. My math contributors will have to check me on that. And overall, I really enjoyed reading and looking through this unit. It's clear that the 2 contributors, they spent a lot of time, a lot of thought in this unit and how to get students collaborating in a lot of different ways. As I was reading through the unit, I really visualized in my mind a classroom of elementary students very engaged in learning, having fun collaborating with a student from another state, and then having really rich discussions in their class by using something so interactive as Twitter. So nice work, guys. I will be emailing you your rubrics, and thank you for letting me give you feedback.